Hi everyone, and welcome to Being a Dad.
Hello.
Season 2. It's Paul and Chris, and we're soon to be joined by Tom Coopey, who is just sorting out his technical stuff. And here he is. Welcome
Hi,
to the show,
Tom.
Tom.
Hi guys, hi, glad to be with you at last.
We're on TV, Tom.
Bye all.
Someone you know has just said hi, Kevin Thomas.
Hey Kev.
Hi, Kev. Kev's our top star fan, I think, at the moment since lockdown.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So, Tom, we're going to just ask you a few questions and get people to have a chance who are logging on to catch up with who you are and what you do. So, Tom, just tell us where you were born and brought up, first of all.
So I'm a Leicester lad. Any East Midlanders out there will be pleased to know. Yeah, born in Leicester and lived there until I was 18. Well, that's the answer to that question.
Cool. And do you like football?
I love football. You know that. I love football.
I can tell. Your face says football.
I love Leicester City.
Oh.
I
Okay.
do.
Well, any other
Big
Leicester
fan.
fan?
Never mind.
So, Tom, you tell us a little bit about your life. You went to school. What did you do? What were you good at apart from football?
Well, yeah, I did go to school. Yeah, I liked playing football, and I remember a teacher once saying, "If only he could show the same enthusiasm in the classroom as he did on the football pitch." Somewhere. So yeah, grew up in Leicester, and loved that. I'm one of 4 kids. I'm number 2 in line. So I've got an older brother, a younger sister, and another younger brother. But this may bear some relevance later. My younger brother was adopted. My parents adopted him when he was 5.
Wow.
And he has profound disabilities. So that shaped our family massively for the good. Christian family, and came to faith myself when I was a sort of 12, 13-year-old, and went off to university. Met Susie, who I fell in love with. We then got married, moved to Weymouth for our first go at living in Weymouth, and I was a youth worker in the town, working for a group of churches, and lived here for 5 years. And we left just after I became a dad. So our eldest Noah was born in 2008, and shortly after that we moved along the coast to the Wimborne Pool area. Youth worker there for a bit. Long story short, went off to train to be a vicar in the C of E. Trained in Nottingham, did a bit more training in Salisbury, and then I find myself back at the church, one of the churches where I was youth worker all those years ago, at St John's Church here in Weymouth, which I know many of you know. And so we left Weymouth with 1 child. We returned with 4.
Wow, come on.
Which explains
the family tradition.
It explains the bags under the eyes.
So, Tom, what was the biggest shock for you when you had your first child? You both brought the baby home. What was the biggest shock for you?
I think the biggest shock, it's hard to brilliantly recall because it was all shocking. It was all shocking, and it was all brilliant, and it was all everything. And our eldest was not a sleeper.
No.
From day one. So it was lack of sleep, but it was more. The big shock was that it just didn't. That it was relentless. You could never kind of just walk away from it. I don't mean it as, I'm not referring to nourising. I mean from parenting. You could never walk away from that. It just came thick and fast any time of the night, through the day. That's what hit me. That actually most other things you could kind of opt in and opt out.
Wow.
And actually being a parent just is not like that. That seems daft saying it. We should have expected that.
true, but I don't think you're ever ready for that, are you? You can't put them back in. When you see them coming out, you're like, no, there's no way that's going back in there.
Correct. Correct. Yeah. So it was shocking. Shocking's not a bad word. It was a shock to the system. Yeah.
And what would you consider your greatest, your most noble, memorable act as a dad you want to be remembered for?
I don't know. You know what? I haven't done any preparation for this little session. I just thought I'd just be natural and off the cuff. The only bit of preparation I did was at lunchtime today. I told my kids what I was doing later.
Yeah.
And I said to them, so just tell me, what do you think makes a good dad? Or what do you see in me that is good and what isn't so good? And
the proof drug.
Yeah, no, it didn't go anywhere. The only thing they said, which just gives you an insight into the conversations in our house at the moment, is, Dad, if you let us have a dog, we'll think you're a great dad. And then they just all sort of walked off. So the pressure's on. We've been talking dogs for quite a few years, and we've said not yet, not yet, not yet. And the pressure's really growing now. We're going to make a decision soon. Which I won't give away what we're going to say in this forum. I should tell the kids first. But they all they thought is if I could just say we could have a dog, I could do anything else after that. It's fine.
Are they watching now?
No, I don't think so.
Can you say hello to Pete Naylor before he cries?
Hi, Pete. Hi, Pete. Hello again. Yeah, I just told Pete that little anecdote on the beach about 45 minutes ago. Yeah. So I don't know. You know what? I don't kind of look back on sort of 12 years of parenting and think that's when I did it brilliantly. But equally, I don't think I even look back and think, oh, that's where I massively messed it up. It's just like I say that because it just is always there. You just deal with it as it comes, and you should ask Susie really about that. She'd
it would be a fun thing to do, wouldn't it? Get our wives on and say, "Yeah, let's hear it."
Yeah. I don't know. You just roll with the punches, I guess.
To be very personal, I guess you and Susie have got quite a different approach intuitively, but you work together because it tends to be, doesn't it, that we come from very different backgrounds and we bring that with us, a sort of expectation into the family and into our marriage and our child bringing up. Just summarize what you think your strengths are and Susie's strengths are and how you kind of play off each other.
Yeah, we're I think for Susie and I, we're some couples really typify the kind of opposites attract thing. We're actually fairly similar, not entirely similar, but we sort of came together in marriage from pretty similar upbringings, pretty similar values instilled in us, and I think we actually, in the run up to parenting, I think without ever saying this, I think we just kind of backed ourselves to do it quite instinctively. And so we're not massive planners. And so actually there's a lot of kind of reacting and going with it. But actually parenting was enough of a challenge to make us realize that actually we're not as instinctively brilliant as we thought we would be.
Right. That's
the challenge, a lot of it is on instinct, and that's part personality, I think. Some people are planners and will read every textbook. We never did that. We read the odd bit and piece, and actually even being involved in this, I'm very cautious of advice, because actually every child is different, every marriage is different, every season of life is different as well. And I think we kind of share that sense that actually we'll just kind of approach it openly and approach it together. Susie has that incredibly strong protective maternal streak, which is just brilliant to watch and humbling to watch as well. Very, very courageous in her parenting. She works harder than I do. I'll be blunt with you. I will. She, I, yeah, I don't know. I'd to use your phrase for your song. I'd happily saunter off mentally. She's always there,
Yeah.
always focused.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Awesome.
But I'm so grateful that we do it together.
Yeah.
We are a partnership and we are a team, and
Yeah.
massive respect to anyone who's doing it alone.
Incredible. Yeah.
Huge amount of respect. So so we're grateful for the teamwork element of it. Very grateful.
Yeah. Brilliant. So, do you have any surprising hobbies that you'd like to share with us, Tom?
Well, as you know, I've sort of being back in Weymouth. I decided I should have a go at a triathlon,
Yeah.
which I did last year. In fact, I think you can
Cool.
just about see my bike in the corner there. There we
Oh,
go.
hello. Yeah, there it
Yeah.
is.
So it's not a surprising hobby when you live in Weymouth, but yeah, just enjoy swimming, enjoy cycling, enjoy running when I'm feeling fit enough to do that.
So,
It's not surprising, is it?
so are you booked in for the Challenge Weymouth one, the Ironman 70.3 or whatever it is?
You know what? I was booked in to do it in September,
Yeah.
but I've deferred my place to 2021 for two reasons. One is I just thought certainly when those first restrictions of exercise came in, I
Yeah.
just thought I'm not going to get the
I
time in to
need
do the
miles
exercise I
in.
need.
Yeah.
And the other thing is actually this is a whole other part of my life at the moment. Is I was going to do that as a fundraiser for Hope House, which is
Mm.
the building that I know you guys know very well. But we're developing that into a centre for young people, for children, for
Mm.
families, and it just seemed somehow the wrong time to be launching a giving campaign as
Mm.
people are being furloughed, losing jobs, and things like that.
Yeah.
So I must admit, it took some pressure off
Yeah.
in terms of the
I don't
training.
even
But
know. I was going to do it. I don't even know if they're going to run it because of the.
yeah, I think they may well can it. They may well
Yeah.
cancel it. But I think even if they don't, I just wouldn't have got the hours in.
Cool. All right,
Yeah.
Tom. What we're going to do is we're going to come back to you in a bit. We're going to have a little hear from Chris. Chris is a serial foster carer along with his wife Ruth, and they have been throughout my life. And Anna's just an incredible example of parenting, and we've always looked at them to see what they're doing, and they're a few jumps ahead of us. But I think in the course of their married life, Chris will probably tell us, but I don't know how many children you've fostered, but it's been quite amazing. And so Chris is going to just talk to us a little bit about being a dad to children who you're not biologically related to, and then we will come back to you, Tom, and we'll just banter around and talk about the whole thing, because we know that even if we haven't got watching now, we will have people from blended families watching, and foster carers and adoptive parents and so on. And I think it opens up a whole huge set of other issues that Chris is well placed to share with us. So, Chris, over to you.
Thank you. We know things don't always go well. And this is about when things are not ideal, in recognition that things go wrong. Even when the marriage is going well, things go wrong. And this session is not just for people who are looking after children who are not their own or in broken relationships. It's about principles. By the age of 16, a third of our children are living away from their fathers.
Wow.
That family breakdown to reality that we have to be real about is tough on kids. And there seems to be an idea these days that a divorce can be amicable, but I don't believe many people come to divorce without going through agony.
Mm.
If they were committed to marriage in the first place, tearing it apart is going to tear people apart. And that means there is pain to deal with. And the most important thing is to try and deal with it without inflicting collateral damage on their kids. Divorce doesn't mean that kids no longer need a dad. In fact, they need a dad more than ever. And the sad fact is about 28% of children whose parents have separated have no contact with their father after the first 3 years of separation.
No.
As I said, there's agony involved, and conflict between parents is toxic to children.
Mm.
Some researchers called Plack and Masciadrelli in 2004 said that children are less likely to become depressed or aggressive the better their parents are getting on, the more they themselves see their separated father. We have the phenomenon now of the way separation works for many families is dad gets the kids at the weekend, so we have Saturday dads, and we've all seen situations in places like McDonald's and the cinema where their contact is in a commercial environment.
Mm.
It's time limited and it's quality limited, and it's an artificial environment. We talked a bit last week about how to save the environment in marriage, and we really need to be clear that no matter what the circumstances of divorce or separation, parents need to work together to create the environment for the children to thrive.
Mm.
And not to weaponize the children. I think that's one of the worst things you can do, is to turn children into a weapon.
Mm.
That's really technically a form of abuse. And when you're motivated by anger and pain, it's hard not to do stuff like that. We really have to be disciplined. There's a saying, hurting people hurt people. And I think when you are in pain, it's quite hard to be objective about the impact you're having on other people.
Yeah.
But both parents have to see the time with the children not as a right, but as a responsibility.
Mm.
And an incredible privilege.
Yeah.
The key to recovering from divorce and from separation is forgiveness, and it's a difficult issue because it means letting go of the past, and often that's the one thing a person doesn't want to do when they've been wounded. But forgiveness doesn't mean, somebody said, not forgiving is like drinking poison and expecting your enemy to die. Forgiving means laying it down, letting its consequences in your life go. Forgiveness gives you a future.
Yeah.
One of the important things to me is guilt and shame, which I think are a major issue in parenting. They muddy the waters and lead to a lack of clarity and certainty. I mean, it's hard to set boundaries and guidelines. There's an old saying, there's an old song that says love and marriage go together like a horse and carriage. Well, parenting and guilt go together like they've been welded together.
Mm.
And I'm a bit concerned that I'm in the presence of a pastor and a vicar, but I'm going to try and distinguish between shame and guilt in a rough and ready sort of way if I can. Probably won't hold water theologically, but shame is vague. It's hard to shed. It's disabling. It hangs around. Guilt is specific, and you can address it. You can say sorry and make amends. So it's helpful in a situation of conflict or pain to try and convert shame into guilt. Instead of saying, I'm a rubbish dad, say, I'm really sorry, I forgot the football match or your birthday or whatever it is. How can I make it up to you?
Mm.
Make it a specific thing that an action will help you. Saying sorry doesn't weaken or diminish your authority. In fact, it strengthens it in the long run. And it increases the security of children because they see the rules applied to the parents as well as to them.
Yeah.
They say the difference between a tyranny and a democracy is in a democracy the rules apply to the rulers as well. You might be able to think of a modern day example where it doesn't seem to be the case. And the other thing to say is bluff and bluster doesn't fool anybody. If you're in the wrong, you need to admit it and make amends.
Yeah.
What we're doing is modelling. And children see what we do, and they're not fooled.
Mm.
I had a conversation with my wife the other day, and she just realised there was something that she did which wasn't really rational, but she did it because her mother had done it. And she never really thought about why she did it. It was just hardwired into her. She thought, there isn't actually a reason for that. It's just that I saw my mum doing it.
Mm.
So what we model in day-to-day life, and particularly when the going gets tough, when it's easy, you can think more, you can do things more on purpose. But when the going gets tough, you really have to be disciplined. As we said last week, discipline comes from self-discipline. We need to rule our own hearts.
Yeah.
Often, we talked a bit about breaking up of families, but there's the equal problem when a new dad comes along, when you as a dad begin to parent a new family. Tom, you were mentioning that you and your wife came from a very similar background. Can I just ask if you had any issues when the children came along about what dads did and what mums did? Any differences of opinion?
I don't think we had any huge differences of opinion. We I think in some ways that we wouldn't have said we had hard and fast rules on what dad's job is and what mum's job is, but actually our life circumstances have dictated that more so than any kind of strong views we brought into it. I think we both came from backgrounds where we knew we just knew that we were loved by our parents. And again, a little bit like I couldn't answer your question, Paul, about my great moments. I don't think I could list my own parents' great moments. It's just something steadier than that.
Yeah.
I can think back to great happy memories, but actually we shared that sense of actually our children need both of us and they need our time.
Yeah.
And that becomes ordinary, and that's a triumph, isn't it? When not a disaster is ordinary, and the norm is the norm. That's major, yeah. But a new dad coming into a family that's already set up with its own rules might be quite different. It's important to be overt about that and discuss what they are. A new dad figure in an established family very often feel the need to establish authority and set rules and feel it'll all fall apart if he fails. And there obviously do need to be some ground rules, but the temptation to lay down the law usually leads to catastrophe and escalation.
You're seen as an imposter, presumably, or a newbie.
Yeah. You're not the boss of me. You're not the dad of me. I owe you nothing. I never wanted you.
Yeah.
And a child who's experienced rejection in a previous breakup is well equipped with a vocabulary and armamentarium to attack and to pass on the pain that they're feeling. And it's important not to see that as personal. Some of it may be personal, and obviously it needs to be worked through, but a lot of it would be just because you're standing where you're standing. And if you're forceful, bullying, wheedling, manipulative, as I said, you're modelling. And kids are like ball. Weapon used against them works once, but it won't work the second time. It quickly run out. If you're going to take that sort of approach, you quickly run out of things that work. It is important to be overt. I mean, if for instance, we have 3 Christian dads, all of whom have at least 4 children. But I bet our rules on things like bathroom usage, whether it's okay to take stuff out of the fridge, whether it's okay to take stuff out of the kitchen, whether the kids can make their own breakfast, whether it's okay to miss meals from time to time, what happens in the bathroom, who goes in first, whether you have a bath or a shower, and how often you have to have it. Those sorts of things, they differ with the age of your children, whether they're boys or girls, hugely.
Yeah.
But you can't assume that they'll be the same.
We've got 3 girls with long hair, plus a mum with long hair. So showers take ridiculous amount of time, and the plug hole is always blocked up, and girls are unable to unblock plugs, evidently. So
yeah. I remember going on a canal boat holiday with you, and you had one boat and we had the other boat, and you had all the girls, or maybe the girls. You kept having to stop to fill the boat up with water and empty the sewage tank, didn't you? But we didn't. We just had boys.
Yeah.
Stick your head in the canal and you're fine.
So, Chris, when these children have come into your home, with you and Ruth, have you had the same dynamic that you're not my dad, you can't tell me what to do, even though they know that they've come under your sort of governance, if you like, as the parents?
Yeah, usually there's a honeymoon period. I
Right.
think children coming into care in particular, it may be less so when a new dad comes into the situation, but I think it still is the case. Nobody wants a hard time. Nobody turns up in a new situation wanting to make things difficult for themselves, depending on the age of the child. They tend to be being nice to start with. And actually, it's a relief when that mask comes off and they start to be
Right.
themselves. And
Yeah.
when the "you're not the dad of me" and you can't push me around comes out, it means they're feeling safe enough to express opposition.
Right.
I don't think there's anything quite as brave as a 2-year-old who's 2 foot tall, looks up at a 6 foot dad and says, "You're not the boss of me."
It's amazing, isn't it? The
It
sheer
is, yeah.
self-belief to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. With children who come into foster care usually come from a very disordered background, usually much more disordered than just a normal, simple broken family. There's usually other issues. And it takes time for those things to emerge. And the most important thing, I think, really is being safe, having rules that are overt and obviously apply to everybody, and giving the children space and not jumping down their throats, being
Yeah.
consistent, not having
That
favourites.
word seems to come up a huge amount, doesn't it? I think, like in the last 2 weeks, we've touched on consistency quite a lot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it makes children feel safe when they know what the structure is. They may, as we said last week, they often push against boundaries, but they need to know where the boundaries are, and they get more secure the firmer the boundaries are held when they know what they are, if they're reasonable.
Yeah.
But as we said, once you've drawn a line in the sand, you have to be prepared to defend it. So think carefully about where you put the line.
Yeah. So I would imagine both you, Chris, and you, Tom, have had dads talking to you professionally, in blended family situations where they just don't feel like they've got any traction whatsoever with the children. Would that be true?
Yeah.
Yeah, probably just in this role, come across an awful lot, and often actually in the context of preparing people to be married, which is a part of my job. That's quite. It's not unusual to actually see two families coming together.
Right.
And actually, the preparation for the wedding day is one part of that. But the bigger part is actually to help those two families think some of those things through, or when a dad might be joining an established family already. Yeah, come across it a lot.
Yeah. So, Chris, what about as a GP? Have you seen a lot of that? People come in your clinic and just, I don't know what to do, doc.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes that when it gets as far as seeing me, it's often because of a really substantial behavioural disorder that probably needs specialist treatment.
Wow.
But there are some principles. What you pay attention to, you get more of. For instance, I don't know if you guys know about the Incredible Years program.
Yeah.
One of the things we learned from that was that what you pay attention to, you get more of. So if you notice desirable behaviours, you get more of them. And when there's conflict in a family, often the kids don't get noticed till they're doing something that crosses a line, and they get so the feedback they get back is negative. But children crave attention, and they'll do anything to get attention. If you have to be naughty to get attention, you do it.
It works. You've got it. Yeah. So for the passive dad, then, who really wants a quiet life and wants to keep his head down, that's a recipe for kind of reaping the whirlwind, because then the child will act up to get attention, and then the dad will react to that, and then the child's got at least something. So, but if the dad was interacting and acknowledging the good stuff, you're saying that you probably stand a better chance of getting more of the good stuff.
Yeah, and similarly, when you're getting the bad stuff, it's important to defuse and step back. We had one child who Paul knows very well, who had quite severe disordered behaviour, and she would start off kicking off, and we would have a system for punishment, and at a certain age she'd be grounded for doing certain things. The rules were applied to her and certain other people. That would, in her, result in an increased oppositional behaviour and a worsening tantrum. And I ended up grounding for about 21 years on one occasion, which is obviously meaningless. And we learned that when she was growing up, when she was on the thing is, anger communicates. You get angry with me, I'm going to be angry back. It's a fluid. It's not the right word, but it's a very powerful language. It communicates very clearly. And what would happen would be she would get in a firestorm, and then we'd go up, and you at that point you want to win more than almost anything else.
Yeah,
there's no good. Yeah, on the one hand, the principle is you can't let a child get away with something by having a tantrum or by doing bad behaviour. But the time and place to address it is not at that point with a child with that sort of disorder.
So just give
you
us
have to step back.
Sorry.
So, go on.
No, I was just going to ask you, Chris, give us a few pro tips on de-escalation then with a child. When the child's mood is elevating and you can see everything's going, we're going down that old familiar pathway where, it's all going to kick off and everyone's going to get so angry and say things they shouldn't say. How do you de-escalate?
One thing that helps is to give the child a vocabulary to describe what's going on. You're getting very cross about this, saying, and to empathise. Say, even if we disagree, I can see that you're angry about this, and we'll have to discuss it when you're feeling less angry. We have to sort it out. And sometimes playfulness helps, or making a joke of it, although you should never make the child the butt of the humour, otherwise that becomes abuse. But sometimes humour is about catching people on the wrong foot almost, isn't it? You tell a joke, it sets up in one direction. It's funny because the punchline goes in a completely different direction. Just you can catch a kid on the hop and make them laugh. You can often defuse the situation. It still needs to be discussed, and there need to be consequences sometimes, but they don't have to be immediate. And depending on the age of the child, I think if your child's under 5 or 4 or 5, the consequences probably do have to be immediate, but because it's not going to mean anything later on.
Yeah.
But with older children, you can negotiate what you're going to do about this and how we're going to get through.
Have you had to develop some de-escalation skills, Tom?
Yeah, a lot. And actually, there's been an increase during lockdown because they're all escalating together some days.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it. Forgive me if this has been talked about already in these sessions, but
it doesn't matter.
Actually, the love languages stuff that came out
a
few years ago. So love languages is a thing which was initially for married couples and couples to understand each other, and it's the way that we give and receive love. And I think there are 5, and one is time, one is physical affection, one is words, one is gifts, and there's another one as well which I can't remember.
Acts of service.
Acts of service. Yeah. Thank you. So that's helpful for couples to think through, and to sort of sometimes realise why your attempts to show love are not received in the way you expect. But actually, it's just the same for our children. And so, for example, today we had a blow up between 2 of ours, and it was a bit ragey. It was very tearful, and with one of ours who was very cross today. I just know him now well enough to know that actually he just needs my arm around his shoulder, even in that rage. And even if he flinches initially, actually it's what he needs. It's how he needs me to communicate. And sure enough, actually, that rage turned into the tears, and then the tears turned into all that sort of stuff. And then we got to a good place. But my other son, that just would not have worked. I needed to talk to him later alone, because his thing, there we go, that's it.
Yeah.
So for that son who needed the arm, he's very tactile. For the other one, he is as well, but actually more so. He needs to know he's got your time. So it didn't take long
Yeah.
with our son to do the hug and the calm down. But actually, my other son had to be later. He had to have a bit of time just to process it, and then it's knowing your children, I guess.
Yeah.
Very
And
good.
as well, I sometimes just find myself thinking, oh, I'm meant to be the grown up.
I've been there.
Step away, because
Step
actually
away from the vehicle.
there is something that gets drawn in, and then
Yeah.
they're there and I'm there and they're there, and there's no
Yeah.
way, there's no positive way back really sometimes. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's about knowing, the kids,
That's
knowing what they need.
yeah. Have you used the love languages thing much, Chris?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
Not particularly purposefully, but when it came up, it became part of the language, part of the vocabulary of the house.
Yeah. Yeah.
More, I think, with our own children than with foster kids, actually. I'm not really sure why that is.
So, how do you build self-worth into a child who's been who's coming to your care, Chris, who's just been literally pulled down, and they may be very defensive, but they just have such a poor view of themselves.
Little by little, I think, is the answer to that.
Mm.
You model it, don't you? You treat them the same as the others, and you, you speak to them respectfully, and you don't push. I mean, basically, you don't push them around. We had a situation when we had a difficult foster placement some years ago, when social services offered us a holiday. They would take the 3 foster children off us for a week, so we could have a holiday as a family, just us and our 4 kids. And we discussed it with our kids, and they were outraged. They said, "How can you treat them differently from us? We're all the same." I think that's really it's developing that atmosphere. Everybody's valued, everybody's worth the same.
Yeah. Tom, can you see Pete's question there? So Pete Naylor has asked.
Yeah.
You mentioned having a disabled sibling. Chris is talking about some of the children having difficult backgrounds. The extra attention that they may need can impact on the other children. How is that managed? I.e., avoiding resentment from the other siblings. And I mean, our firstborn had Asperger's and ADHD as a package deal, and we didn't know it till it wasn't officially diagnosed until he was 16. But prior to that, we were dealing all the time with a potential calamity of meltdown or something or other, or some mean stunt that had been pulled, or just unpredictable behavior. And it did kind of often divert a lot of parental attention to the child with the issue. Can you guys sort of chip in and talk a bit about that?
Yeah, I can a bit like you can only really speak from my own experience, but as Pete's mentioned in his question, my younger brother has cerebral palsy, and
Oh, gosh.
my
Yeah.
parents adopted him when he was 5, so I was 8, and I think partly for us, I think two things were really important in that. And the first is that even at a young age of 8, I remember very clearly that my parents involved us very much in the decision,
Mm.
and so we encountered it and took it on almost as a team. Now, that's not to say that my parents had heavy expectations on us kids to be carers, but actually somehow it's just something that we kind of embraced and almost enjoyed the challenge and the teamwork of it. And actually, I sometimes reflect, my siblings are all now in kind of caring pastoral professions, and I don't think that's an accident.
Yeah.
But I think the other thing for us is that actually, and this wouldn't be the same in every situation, there were already 3 of us, and so actually, mum and dad inevitably had to spend extra time with my younger brother because of his physical needs. And so what we were going to play football in the garden. No big deal, you know. So, you know, I think it worked out in our situation. But I imagine if it was a different scenario, that exactly what Pete's identified could be quite an issue. And I guess the challenge then is, as much as the parent can, and parenting requires so much energy, doesn't it? So
Yeah.
on top of all of that care work, to then think, how do I now invest meaningfully in the lives of the other children?
Yeah. Yeah.
Can I ask you, Tom? Do you think, looking back now, did you ever think it was unfair that they gave you that much responsibility at such a young age? Did it ever seem unfair?
No, and it never felt like that. And I've never thought that really. I think we just sort of quite enjoyed it, and it's easy to use this language now, but actually there was a sense of a shared calling. I wouldn't have said that when I was 8, but actually I think that was actually what God was calling our family to do, not just mum and dad. Of course, it was their ultimate decision, and they did, and they still do the heavy lifting in more ways than one. But no, I
Wow.
think I remember a little bit of nervousness in the run up, that some of the issues we're talking about may have been issues, but actually they just never have been. It's just testament to my folks. You know, my parents, he might even be watching. Hi, Dad. Hi, Mum. Thank you for everything. Um, you know, in that someone's just left. You know, but I think that act of, of adoption still stays with me. It's the most powerful demonstration beyond preaching, beyond 1,000 sermons, about actually
Maybe.
what God's heart is, and that,
Wow.
that 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 stays with us. It stayed with us kids, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's powerful stuff. But again, as a kid, you take it a day at a time, and you don't think of it in those terms. But you look back and realize what an incredibly special thing it's been.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, people who have experience of living with people with disabilities, often the question is framed around how did you cope? How good of you? You know, we were often sort of almost celebrated as this wonderful family for looking after this poor child. But I think we just kind of thought, actually, having I'm not going to say his name because there are still a few sensitivities around it and with this being live, but having our brother with us blessed us
Yeah.
massively.
Yeah.
Massively. It wasn't about what we could do for him, it was about what he's done for us, really. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's yeah.
We had the most profound experience at both my daughter's weddings, where Josh, who's now at Bible college and he's doing really amazingly, and he's just an absolute legend. But he insisted on giving a speech at each of their weddings, although he wasn't the best man or anything. And both times he did this glorious apology to his sisters for the hard time he gave them and so on as a brother when they were younger. And everybody in the whole place is in tears, you know, and you kind of think, you know what? There were times it was pretty hectic and a bit intense, and you just feel like a complete failure as a parent. But looking back, I kind of think, wow, what a treasure we have got. And each of our girls have invested in him getting to where he is now. And they, you know, he's their hero. They love him. He's a champ, you know, and but it's a messy old process, isn't it, getting there? But you have those moments where it's just like, oh, somebody frame that. Because that is actually good. You know, it's like, oh, come on. Yeah. Chris, do you want to say anything else on that subject? Well, I think we probably interrupted you a bit, but
A couple more things I was going to finish off with. One is, in a new relationship, you need to agree the ground rules outside of the theatre of war, so to speak, and stick with them. And and what we agreed was that if one of us in that escalating situation, if I was in that situation and my wife felt that I was getting out of control, she would signal to me and I would pull back, like tag wrestling. She would take over with a cooler eye on what was going on, and vice versa.
yeah.
The other thing I was going to say was when we're talking about consequences and punishments and things, it's important to be prepared to be merciful when the child's behaviour leads to natural consequences that have punished them enough. You don't have to come back and execute vengeance on them afterwards. And I think what you were saying, Tom, each child needs to be handled in the way that they can respond to best. And for one child would be absolutely dismayed at having crossed the line and doesn't need any more punishment. Another child might need 6 weeks in the salt mine to get to the same level of repentance.
Yeah.
It's horses for courses.
Yeah.
That's all I've got to say about that.
Yeah, thank you. So,
Do you know
Tom,
what? One of the things I really appreciate that you said, Chris, because I think even a good few years into parenting, this is something that I still sometimes struggle with. A lot of the kind of perceived wisdom around parenting is that you got to let them know who's boss, and if you say you're going to do something, you've got to stick to it. And if you say there's going to be a sanction, you've got to carry it through. Now we've never done that. Again, it's partly, I guess, that instinctive thing we were talking about. But actually, someone who's a superb parent said to me recently that actually our kids need to hear us say, "Yeah, I might have said this is going to be the sanction, but I was wrong to have said it."
Yeah.
And it's so yes, there have to be boundaries, but that kind of like we're going to show who's boss and we're not going to back down.
Yeah.
It's never sat comfortably, and there are times where I've backed down and thought, "Oh, does this make me a lousy parent?" So you've brought some affirmation tonight, Chris. So thank you.
Yeah, definitely. It's really helpful. And I think sometimes it's like, am I going to win the argument or am I going to win the person? What do I get if I win this argument? And, sometimes we can almost deteriorate into a bully, can't we, when we're trying to push through on something that we decided, superior is the right thing.
Yeah, and you look so silly when you don't back down. You turn out to be wrong, don't you?
Yeah.
And that's hard to come back from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Mm.
So, Tom, any other words of wisdom you want to share with us? We've got a few more minutes. We started a bit late, but we're sort of just about 8:30, but we can go on a couple more minutes.
I'll just chuck this one in. One thing that I'm aware of all through parenting and even every day is that there are always awkward conversations that you've got to have with your children. There's always discipline issues of some sorts. There's always some kind of awkward thing that needs to be dealt with. There's always there might be some reluctance to do something, and you've got to overcome it with your children. And so, I've recently been looking at Paul's letters, the epistles in the New Testament, and have just noticed, it was in the context of something else I was preparing for, just noticed that actually all of his letters start and end with grace. So he has a formulaic greeting: grace, mercy, and peace from the God our Father and the Lord Jesus Christ be with you. That's how he starts, and then the end is nearly always something very similar: or grace be with you, or grace be with you all. Yet in the middle of those letters, often there are really difficult things that have to be said. But because of the beginning and the end, readers know he is for them, and they know that he wants them to thrive. And I just kind of think it's made me want to make sure that actually for all those tricky conversations, they're bracketed with grace.
Good.
And that means literally every day. And so when I see my children in the morning, I don't carry on a problem that we might have had yesterday. New mercies every morning. And so at the end of the day, whatever's gone on, and sometimes it might have been pretty difficult stuff, at the end of the day, and again, our children sort of do bedtime differently in terms of what they want from us, but actually every day ends with a similar word of love and grace and forgiveness and all the rest of it. It's the principle of not letting the sun go down on your anger, but actually I'm aware that sometimes we make loads of mistakes, we have very difficult conversations with the kids, escalation happens, yet all that can happen in that frame that they know that they are loved. So I'm trying to be more intentional about that at the moment.
Yes, good, Tom.
Really well.
I think every day being a new day is so important. I think carried over guilt and punishments and stuff like that, forget it. I think what Chris said, you said particularly when children are young, everything needs to be pretty immediate. If it's dragged out, you lose the what's this about again? You know, I've lost track. And I think, you know, the immediate sanction, sit them on the stairs or whatever it is, and then we'll have a conversation about it, and then bring them back in, and we get on with the day, and we don't keep talking about it and revisiting it and going over it and over it. Go on, Chris.
Just going to echo what you said. That to go on go on about it afterwards is manipulation.
Horrible. Extracting our pound of flesh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Brilliant. Okay, well, great job. Thank you so much for joining us, Tom. We might get you back. And thank you again, Chris. And thank you, everyone who's watched. And please do share and tell your friends about it. And also, please comment and give us something, you know, to throw in questions. And come ready armed with questions next week. And we're on at the same time. And sorry for a late start today. And thank you once again to Forchi in the background, who's made it all happen and made it look swanky out front. So God bless you guys. Have an amazing week. Big applause for Tom. Woo!
Okay.
Cheers. Well done,